There's a lot of discomfort on people being nervous about AI and what that's going to mean and how it's going to change jobs. AI will never have EQ.
Artificial intelligence could soon change the way that we work.
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial general intelligence.
So if you're working on a skill set for yourself right now, that's it, the soft skills. We can train Gen AI to be smart at regurgitating its knowledge, but it's never going to have that element. So for people that are worried, I would say, don't be worried and embrace it.
Welcome to Tiffany's podcast. Our guest this week is Tricia Dallahan, powerhouse executive, corporate chameleon, and all-around genuine, amazing human. Don't believe me? Here's her official title: VP, Product Management, and Chief of Staff for Walmart Global Tech. Not a lightweight. On the corporate chameleon front, she's gone between every corner of the business, from e-commerce to merchandising to product development to technology strategy to AI. Perhaps most importantly, Tricia has built an impeccable career prioritizing going after skill sets and hands-on experience over chasing titles. After 20 years at the same company, the real irony is that she ended up getting the titles anyways. In this episode, we're sitting down with Tricia to learn how and why she committed to one company for so long and saw such incredible growth and opportunity, rather than jumping from one place to another, hunting down the next shiny object. This is episode 1 of Tiffany's podcast. Hey, Tricia, so good to see you. How are you doing?
Hey, Tiffany, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much again, Tricia. Honestly, I mean, when we talk about like an incredible career path, yours is just one that comes so top of mind. I mean, the work that you've done at Walmart over these years, from e-commerce to product management to retail and emerging technology to becoming chief of staff, having this great impact with AI. I mean, just like, wow. Do you have to like pinch yourself sometimes as you think about everything you've been able to do?
I just think, it's crazy that they're letting me do this. Like, when are they going to find out that, I'm not really capable or something? But, I mean, I've definitely been blessed, and I've had a lot of fun along the way.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's really remarkable and huge congratulations. Would you mind maybe just sharing a little bit around your path and what kind of got you to this point in your career?
So I actually joined Walmart when they bought our startup. And I didn't really have any intention of going to Walmart, but I was required to interview with them as part of the sale. And it was funny because at the time I was in merchandising, and I remember interviewing with the CFO. And traditionally, merchants and CFOs don't get along because we want to spend money and they don't want us to. But I just loved this man. And I thought, wow, if this is the caliber of people, then I'm in. I would have never, ever guessed in my wildest dreams that I would have been there 24 years. But just, it's such a big company, and there's always so many exciting projects and challenges that I just kept raising my hand for the next one. And then next thing you know, here we are.
Oh, I love that story so much, Tricia. And honestly, it resonates so much with me too, because I found very similar cues for me in my career with L'Oreal as well. And even like you mentioned, that CFO where you really bonded so well from the beginning, there's always like that one person that kind of just draws you into an organization. I had that person as well. It was a VP in one of our divisions at the time. And I was just looking at him. I'm like, wow, if that's what leadership is about, like, sign me up. Like, I want to learn that.
Yeah.
So maybe on that note for you, Tricia, I'm so curious, in your role as VP for Walmart Global Tech and navigating your way up in one organization, which honestly feels more like a rarity these days, right?
For sure. Yeah.
What would you say are 3 factors that really helped you most in reaching those ranks? You talked about like raising your hand for opportunities, but maybe more tactically, can you walk us through what that was like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I always do and always did do was just stay curious and interested in everybody's role, not just mine or not just my division, right? So if I would meet someone in supply chain and I knew nothing, I really wanted to know, tell me how the operations run. Tell me what the biggest factor is that could, cause a problem. And as I did that, that continual learning, I think it just opened doors, because then when projects or things came up in different divisions, I could easily make the move over there. And Walmart was always gracious enough to take me over there, right? So I might not have had the experience, but I had kind of that innate curiosity that I knew I could figure it out. This one's going to sound cheesy, but I believe it's so true, is just being authentic and kind to everyone. People will always remember how you make them feel, and they'll talk about that. And that can either be a positive for you or a negative for you. And a lot of conversations when you're moving up, those are happening in a room that you're not in, right? So making sure that you have been authentic and people know who you are, I think, is an important thing. And then, just the special projects. I mean, oftentimes, I remember one time raising my hand for one that would take me from having a team of about 100 to being an individual contributor. And I really had to soul search, because I thought, wow, is that going to reflect poorly that now I'm an individual contributor? But that one project ended up being my favorite of my entire career. So I just think just taking those leaps and being curious.
Oh my gosh, there's so many good things in what you just shared, Tricia. I don't even know where to start, but I think the one that really I'm latching on to is like being kind and authentic and showing genuine interest in others. It's just something that's not talked about enough, because, right, we feel like there's so much focus on hard skills and technical skills and doing the job well. But at the heart of it, it's so much about the people, and people make decisions around your advancement. And like you said, so much of the time that is happening when you're not even in that room. So what are you doing outside of those moments that's actually contributing to the conversations happening in those moments? And it sounds like you were so intentional with it, but not in a way of playing some type of corporate game or, being political about it, but genuinely showing people first mindset in everything that you did.
I mean, that's exactly it. I know you and I have talked about this separately, but I was never chasing a title, right? I was always chasing skills and experience. If you want to chase skills and experience, you need champions. You need people who are going to give you those opportunities, right? And so I do think that it's a small world out there, even in a big company like Walmart, and you want to make sure that every time you show up as the person that you really are and the person that you want to be, and being authentic. It's the easiest way to never get caught, right? Because you're just being yourself, right? So you don't have to remember any lies you told or any secrets or any behaviors, because you're just always being yourself. And you can't go wrong when you do that.
Yeah, it's a lot simpler too.
A lot simpler, right?
A lot simpler. And you brought up something before too, Tricia, I want to come back on real quick, because you mentioned that some of those transitions in Walmart for you, when you didn't necessarily have that experience or, on paper match up exactly with what that next step was, but you were still able to move into that. And I think that's going to resonate a lot with our listeners for this episode around whether they're thinking to do that in their organization or making a transition somewhere. What do you find really helped you in moving in a direction that didn't necessarily match up with your exact past skill set, but allowed you to build that new skill set and get the endorsement for that?
Yeah, I think, again, I was really lucky early on that I was given, back in the early days of Walmart.com, you kind of had to be a jack of all trades. And so I used that every time I wanted to have a conversation about, I want to go try this and I think I could do it. I used that as an example of, I didn't know how to do this, and look, and here were my results. I drove X volume, or so it's always just talking about, I might not have that direct skill, but here's what I do have, and here's why that's relevant, and here's why I know I can do that job. You always have the right skills. You just need to be able to explain them, right?
Oh my gosh. I love that you shared that, Tricia, because so much of it comes down to the communication in those moments, right? And honestly, removing the guesswork for the other person, right? If you're coming into an opportunity and you're expecting them to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together, it could be a long waiting game. Whereas what you did was the opposite, right? And I relate so much to that because that's exactly what I did in my career too, where if there was that opportunity, I'm like, how do I position myself best to make that very obvious that I'm the right person for that role? And so it does take that thoughtfulness. But when you are building that narrative, it makes the decision to say yes to you a lot easier, right?
By the time you're done, they should be picturing you in that role, right?
Yes.
And they should be kind of feeling like, oh, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
and it doesn't matter if you're scared or if you're really hoping you can pull this off, like that's okay. Um,
I know, it comes with the territory, right? But
it
at
does.
least you're courageous to go for it. You're courageous to raise your hand and say, "Hey, I want that," instead of expecting someone else to advocate for you. You're
Yeah.
you're putting yourself out there, which I think has just paid off so well for you, Tricia, in this incredible path that you've created. And so maybe on that note, I'm really curious because, I think a lot of our listeners are probably going to be keen on knowing more about navigating one organization and the benefits that comes with that. So for you, Tricia, why did you specifically commit to working your way up in one company rather than jumping to higher roles in other companies?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I don't know that I have a great answer, but the truth of the matter is, I would have never thought I would have been there that long. But it is such a large, dynamic company, and it's seen so much change in just the time that I have been there, that there was always something that I was interested in. There was always something I wanted to try. Um, and honestly, it blinked once and all of a sudden it's been 20 years. Like I don't have a great explanation. I will tell you that I'm a first generation American and I grew up very modestly. And so the mission of Walmart to save people money so they can live better really meant something to me. And I really like, as a little kid, I remember, wanting the cuter clothes or wanting these things, and they weren't always attainable. So being able to do that in a cost-effective way where people can and kids can feel confident and feel like they're on trend and all the little things that make you feel more confident in yourself. Like
Yeah.
I felt I really tied to that. Like I felt like it was an important thing that we were doing for the communities. Um, you know,
It's beautiful.
yeah.
No, I really, really appreciate what you're emphasizing right now, Tricia, because it really sounds like it's coming down to what the company stands for, their mission, what it's really all about at the end of the day. And that's such a big part in decision making of deciding to grow with an organization or choose a certain organization, right? And for anyone listening to this, I really encourage you to truly reflect on that because it's so much more than just a role. If you want to think, 5, 10, 15 steps ahead, wherever that takes you, if you feel really connected with where the company stands, what they're building, and that you can play a really pivotal role in that, it's actually going to really support your motivation levels. And it sounds like that was the case for you, Tricia.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt like I could really connect and relate to our customer,
Yeah.
and that made it serving them kind of like my honor instead of my job.
Oh, how cool is that? Almost like an extension of who you are at that point. And to your earlier point, probably ties into like being able to show up authentically. Because if you were working for a company that you're like, I really don't buy into this, but I'm just here for a paycheck, like that just screams inauthentic, right? But for you, you're like, hey, I actually really love what the company stands for.
Yeah.
I'm with them in this mission. It resonates personally from
Yeah.
an upbringing standpoint. That brings a lot of meaning in the work that you do.
Yeah. When you choose to leave your family 8, 10, however many hours a day once you throw in a commute, you want it to be for a purpose. And when you're raising kids, you want them to see that work is something that you're proud of and not something that's a chore, right? Because they're watching.
Oh, yes. They watch everything. Sometimes a little too much.
If you have the mindset of, oh my God, I have to go to work again, right?
Yeah, they feel that.
When they're 16 or wherever, whatever ages they start working, wherever listeners are they going to want to get a job? Are they going to feel like it's a burden? Or are they going to feel like the honor and the privilege that it is to really be able to have a career and help people along the way?
Yeah. There's something I'm kind of picking up on here too, Tricia, which you haven't explicitly said, but I feel like from what you're sharing, there's this underlying note of gratitude and appreciation, right? That, we get to kind of choose the path that we take and we have an active role in that and leading in that way. And the lesson we want to pass on to our families, our children, the way that they're growing up and observing us, it all really comes together in that way. And having a really strong hold on gratitude is sometimes something that can get us through like the hardest of times.
Sure. You've probably seen on social media or different places where if you just change a word, like I have to go to work to I get to go to work,
Oh
or I
yeah.
have to exercise to I'm so blessed that I have, arms and legs and can exercise. Like it's really, they sound silly, but it's really true. Like everybody has reasons to be grateful and everybody has reasons why they can be frustrated. It's just which one are
Yeah.
you going to lean into?
Oh my gosh. Like, can we just say that louder for those in the back, Trisha? Because honestly, so much of it is that shift in perspective. Like, truly, truly, it's all how we look at it. I always say you grow through what you go through,
Yeah,
and it's really about like, how are you going to show up in those moments? And we've all faced a lot of hard moments. We're going to get to that. I know I want to kind of learn a little bit more about those moments for you, Trisha, because as much as it's been an incredible path, there's been those hard moments. But maybe just before we get to that and kind of round off on what we were talking about, I think especially for our listeners, just kind of being stuck sometimes on what is that best next move for me. For you, given the job market, and there's been a lot of movement, I mean, just this past year and last several years alone. So in your view, Trisha, I'm really curious, what do you find is the faster way to climb the ranks? Is it in one company, switching from multiple companies, especially since you've had this great bridge of kind of consumer brand and tech and kind of seeing a little bit of those worlds? What would you say is the more prominent option?
I mean, I think the more prominent option is to switch companies. I think you definitely have the opportunity to consistently sell yourself and move up faster, and you can usually grow your compensation faster when you make those choices. Um, so if that's your end goal is to move up in the ranks fast and make more money fast, then I definitely think staying at one company is probably not always going to be as beneficial. But I think if you want a lot of different experiences, there's a bit of a benefit of being with that company because you already have a reputation. So, I mean, I started as a merchant, I'm now in tech. When's that ever going to happen? It's kind of like, so I think it's important. You said this earlier too, to kind of understand what you want your path to be and then play to that. If your goal is to be, senior vice president within the next 10 years, you're probably going to need to make some moves outside of the same company. If your goal is to be a CEO, you may need to be a founder. It's kind of like you just need to think of all the different options and ultimately what's important to you.
Yeah, that's such a good insight, Trisha. And I really do echo everything that you've just shared because sometimes, the next few steps in a company can be really, really great based off what your priorities are. And sometimes viewing it even as like a springboard for what comes next, right? Like maybe your end goal is to move into a different function or move into a different level of seniority. But actually, your best bet of getting there is moving possibly laterally in your current organization, which, as you said, you've built a reputation. You're building those relationships. You have people who also can speak highly on your behalf and help make that transition. So now that's your new baseline before you actually go to a new company, instead of feeling like you have to do all these changes at once in making that transition externally. So there's just so much like thoughtfulness and intention that has to go into those decisions that aren't rash by any means. And I really love how you laid that out. And for you, the way that it kind of panned out, that Walmart was really one of those organizations that checked off the boxes for you in that regard, and building, like you said, those skill sets over just titles and money. It was more an outcome of going for the other direction.
Yeah. Yeah. If I was looking to switch industries right now, I think what I would do if I was a listener is think about where it's my target industry. Where do I want to go? Can I get some of those skills where I am right now? And then take another 6 months or 8 months and get those skills. So when you want to make that transition, you have it now. right? And
Yes.
it's going to be easier. And you're going to get the gift from your current company of them taking that chance on you because you do have that reputation with them. And then you're going to be able to leverage that when you do make that move. Um, Definitely don't ever, tell yourself that I don't have the skills, so I can't go to, a tech company or a SaaS company or whatever. I mean, get the skills. You can get the skills.
Totally. This is so good. Okay. Oh my gosh. All right. Let's shift gears a little. I'm like, there's too much good stuff here. I'm just like processing it all, Tricia. And it flows so seamlessly for you, which I could just feel it's like a part of who you are. It's so amazing to see that. But we did talk a little bit before around like navigating hardship and gratitude and what helps you get through those hard moments. So I'm really keen to know, Tricia, for you, what's been like that one challenge that was really hard for you to
Yeah.
overcome at Walmart? Like I'm talking like really hard, like the type that kind of keeps you up at night, or maybe that you still think about to this day, like, I can't believe that happened. But what was that for you? And like really tactically, like how did you push through that?
Yeah. It was early in my career. And I had a manager who, I swear, talk about staying up at night. I think this person stayed up at night to figure out how to make me miserable,
Oh my gosh, I feel the same. It's like triggering something, but please go on.
Definitely did a really good job at that role. And I would say in the beginning, I was kind of shell shocked at the behavior, and I didn't do anything right away. But then I thought, I think sometimes when you're feeling attacked, your gut reaction is to attack back. And I definitely didn't do that, but I didn't do anything in the beginning. I was just kind of letting the behavior happen to me. And then I started to kindly, right, in a kind way, just kind of push back, like telling this person, you have an opportunity here to teach me and to manage me and to mentor me and to coach me, all the things you're supposed to be. And I would, whenever a question would come to me that this person knew I could not answer, I would say something like, well, that's a great question. And I know you have so much experience in this. So I would love to talk through how you would handle this situation, right? Because now you're putting it back at them. Are they not going to coach you now? I mean, you are literally asking for help. And gradually, this person just stopped being that way with me because they weren't getting, sometimes it's almost like a bully, right? It's like
Yeah.
if they're not getting the reactions that they want, then they move on. The only thing I don't like about that story is that it didn't really change this person, right? So they might have stopped treating me that way, but they just found a new mark.
Yeah.
I didn't love that, but you also have to let go and know that their management needs to control those behaviors. It's not your place to control that. You can only control yourself and how you react to the situation. But I will tell you that I think about that person a lot, and anytime I'm having a hard day and someone comes to me with a problem, it's like, immediately I think my hard day is not their problem, right? They're coming to me for help and I need to show up for them. So in a way, it was a gift. I got a gift from that person of how not to treat people and how not to make people feel. And I got it early in my career. And I think that helped me grow as a better leader.
Yeah. I want to stop on that for a second, Tricia. Like there's so much importance in what you've just shared because, even in our community with my clients, we talk a lot about very challenging bosses, challenging managers, challenging leaders. And I love that you view that opportunity, especially in hindsight, but even from what it sounds like in the moment of how can you kind of take learnings from that and positivity from that to move forward. And the fact that you used it as kind of like your roadmap of what to do and what not to do and how you want to treat people, and know that when we're having a tough day, we don't have to go and dump that on our teams. We have to show up and be the leader that we need to be. And that's also a lot of like emotion management, right? And the emotional intelligence that's required to be a great manager and leader. And probably this one that you had just didn't quite have that in check. But I'm so proud of you, Tricia, for kind of seeing through that at an earlier stage of your career. That not only did you use communication strategy in those moments, like some of those great examples you just shared, but also beyond that, like, okay, I'm going to take this away from that. I'm not going to focus as much on the negative. It's there, it happened. I can't change that person. But here's what I can do that's in my control. And I really encourage our listeners to
Yeah.
tap into that of what's in your control in those moments to actually move forward. It's not always about all of the downside and negativity that comes from it.
Yeah. Yeah. And fight for yourself, right? And that doesn't have to be a literal fight, but you need to fight for the respect that you deserve.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody, not everybody's going to give you that respect. And that is what it is. I'm not going to say that's okay because I don't think that's okay, but it is real.
Yeah.
Um, and so, and you always have the option if it's really bad to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. And you bring up a really good point too, because even as I think to one of my bosses, that was probably the most challenging I had in my career while at L'Oreal. When you come to kind of realize what drives them or what makes them tick, it actually can be used to your advantage a little in knowing how to manage them. We always think, well, our manager should be managing us, hence why they're our manager, right? But at the heart of it, so much of it can be, well, how do we actually manage them to actually manage us better? And similar to you, Tricia, when I had that kind of breakthrough, I'm like, oh, so she's a little bit more concerned about like how she appears in front of our leadership team. Well, if I can help put things together, present, package that in a way that reflects really well on her and me, then it's like a win-win. And it was really just like this communication adjustment in how we interacted with each other that turned a really negative relationship into one that was actually very civil. Not my favorite one, but civil and manageable until I transitioned to a new team, right? So there's a lot of good that can come from that of kind of decomposing what's happening here and actually focus on the things you can control better.
Yeah. I mean, if you can take a toxic relationship and put your ego aside to do exactly what you just said, work on how can I make this person look better? You'll be amazed, right? I mean, now that person's looking at you as an ally. Now you're
Yes.
tipping them off. Hey, before you go into this meeting, I heard XYZ, and I just want you to be aware that that could come up, right? You're helping this person to make sure that they're showing well in front of their bosses. Um, but you do have to put your ego aside because part of you is like, why should I help this person, right?
Mm,
You
yeah.
should because you're a team player and you're doing it for the company and the customer, and that's what you have to focus on. And a lot of times these toxic people, they're insecure, and
Totally.
it's
I
their
know. How much
insecurity.
time do we have today? Because honestly, yes, it's so much of the time it's that. It's actually their own insecurities that are projecting onto you and other people because they haven't worked through their own stuff, right? And just having that perspective, and I think, it comes also with just time and experience.
100%.
We've both been through a lot, Trisha, so we're like, oh yes, this is so clear to us now, right? But like in those moments, it's sometimes harder to really decipher, like, is it me? Is it them? Is it something that I said? And that overthinking,
Oh, for
can
sure.
really kick in and get the best of you. Did you ever find yourself in those situations, Trisha, when you were dealing with toxicity in the workplace around overthinking, getting in your head, questioning your confidence?
Yes. I mean, 100% yes. Um, you know, that if it's depending on how it goes on, I mean, it to some degree, it's almost like a verbal abuse, and you start to get confused as to what's true and not true, right?
Oh, gosh,
And
yeah.
I remember with this particular person, I used to have to sit down and write myself, almost journal to myself, like, this is what you accomplished, actually, and this is what you did this week. And on those days when I really felt like nothing, I would go back and go, but I did drive, $1 billion in sales last year, and I did, so I can't be that bad. Um, but yes, I mean, definitely, I'm definitely one of those girls that can, ruminate if I allow myself to. So, and I think, a lot of people are like that. And you just need to learn to give yourself grace. Just,
It's a big piece.
it's a big piece. And it's hard. It's hard for sure.
It is hard, but you brought up a really important piece there, which is bringing it back to like your own track record and like your own proof, right? Because when you're in those moments and you have none of that to look to, you can get to a really dark place. But when you're actually, keeping track of your wins and you have your folder in your email inbox of, accolades that you've received or great feedback that you've gotten, use that, to your advantage, right? And it sounds like that's something that was really helpful for you in those moments, Tricia, of like, instead of going down that dark path of like, no, I actually do have a lot going for me. Like I have, done so much. And this situation isn't a reflection of my character or my integrity or my capabilities. And I'm not going to let someone make me question that. It's a powerful shift.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be
Yeah.
your own hype man sometimes,
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, on that note, because obviously getting through these types of hardship moments, you break through and you grow and you evolve as a person. And as you think about for yourself, Tricia, building into more executive ranks at Walmart and building your executive presence, I'd love to know, what were, let's say, 3 traits for you that really helped you build that executive presence?
Yeah. That's really good. What I did for myself when I started to progress up the ranks was I hired a coach, and I kept that coach for a full year.
Mm.
And the amount of deep self-awareness that coach helped me just understand about myself, understand what made me better, understand what made me weaker. They were both there. Um, Understand how to make myself communicate better. Um, that is probably the greatest gift I ever gave myself in my entire career, was doing that. It taught me a lot about kind of all the things I talked about, just being genuine, being authentic, being curious, um, always delivering. When you just do those basics, like I said, when the conversations are being had in the room that you're not in, leaders want people who are going to do the job with as least resistance as possible, right? They don't want to have to micromanage you. They want to know that you can do the job. They want to know that you're not going to cause political problems for them.
Oh yeah.
So if you just stick to those, to the basics of delivering, do your job, be kind to everyone, work through problems, understand people. You made a point earlier about really the EQ of it all. I mean, I don't think that there's an exception to the fact that whenever I've been in a situation where I'm trying to solve a conflict for my team, it's just a lack of understanding about what's motivating the other side. The people who are trying to put the brakes on your project, why? Let's find out why. I don't think it's just because they don't like you. There's a reason. Do we have misaligned goals? Do we, is what's happening? You have to be able to peel back the layers, and having that coach like taught me all of that. Um, and this was many years ago, and he was amazing, and it really set the tone for me, I think, to be able to grow and know myself.
Oh, this is so impactful, Tricia. Honestly, I relate so much to what you're sharing too, because that coaching facet that you got really helped you identify those blind spots.
Yeah,
And we don't always see what's possible for us, nor do we always see like where we can be better, what we can do differently, having that level of perspective. And I think that's also why I just love doing the work I get to do today, right? Not that I have to do that, I get to do, because it's really about helping others, just like your coach did for you, of realizing what's possible and
yeah,
like putting the steps in place to make it happen. Like that's the best gift you can give someone.
yeah,
And I think there's just like sometimes this negative conception or misconception I can say around coaching, that it's like you need to fix something or it's like you have a problem, but it's not even about that. It's just about wanting to be your best self. And if
yeah,
that's a problem, well, then so be it. But I think there's so much to give, and you have so much to give, Tricia. And I think the fact that you got that kind of support to help you level up in your executive presence, executive relations. The impact that you created was probably one of the best gifts you could have given yourself. And it's just paid off big time.
It absolutely was. I remember at the time, I was like, I have no business spending this money. I can't, and oh my gosh, I mean, it paid back, tenfold.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. It
and,
always does. It
and
always does.
yeah, it always does. And again, this is just like I had that really toxic manager that made me reflect on things. My coach, Joe, I mean, I think about even in my personal life, there are things where I think, okay, now you have a tendency to do this. Don't do it. Don't
It
do it in
stuck
this
with you.
situation.
Do you still talk with Joe today?
I am still connected with Joe, yes.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because that also shows, right, Trisha, like the testament to relationship building.
Mhm.
You've
Yeah.
probably established so many relationships over the years that have really stood the test of time, including Joe.
Yeah.
What do you find were strategies you use that really help you nurture those relationships so that, even today, if you reach out, you know that they have your back, that they
Yeah.
are speaking your praises, that they will support you with whatever need that you have. What
Yeah.
do you feel really contributed to that?
I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's just being authentic and kind. I mean, if you're just real with people, people want to help you. People, and give help when you don't need help so that when
Hmm.
you need it, it's there, right?
Yeah,
So if you have that friend who, lost their job, take them to coffee, let them talk, be kind. And it's all going to come back to you. And I think that that's the same with relationships. I mean, I have relationships with people that I started with at Walmart that I haven't seen in 10 years, and something will pop up on LinkedIn and I'll, make a comment to them and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, how are you?" And it's just kind of like great memories, and I think that that's I don't know, we're just so fortunate that we get to
I
have
know.
all of those relationships and all of those experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly, in our lives.
Yeah. Okay, I'm loving this conversation so much, Trisha, for like tons of reasons. But I think one of them is, you were very, vocal in sharing some of the challenges that you had faced along the way. And yet you have this incredible positive perspective and outlook on what you've done and what got you here. And I feel like so much of the time when people are in their workplaces or facing these difficult moments, they're quick to jump to that conclusion that, this isn't for me, or, I have to make this drastic shift. When you really just learn like the skills to get through that, there's so much good waiting for you. You just need to know how. And I feel like you've really taken the time to build that for yourself, of course, in your relationships that you've built and the different roles that you've taken on and the courage that you've had in a lot of moments to get you to where you are today. And I think that's a really beautiful thing because we don't see enough of that, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my mom and dad raised me well. They raised me to be humble and kind and,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
You're a gem, Trisha. I know I've said that before because you and I we love chatting with each other, but you really are. I'm so impressed with not just from like a professional track record, but really like the person who you are, because the kindness and authenticity just shines through. And I'm sure our listeners and viewers are really picking up on that with this episode. It goes a long way. I want to come back to something you shared earlier too about, really taking the time to understand what is driving other people's decisions, or sometimes when they're not with you, like why that is that it's not just that they don't like you, but there's probably more to it. And I think there's such a role to play for being empathic in the workplace,
mhm.
right? Instead of coming at it from a place of assuming things about other people that, oh, because they're not helping me with this, that must mean that they don't like me, or that must mean that they're not supportive of our team. Take the time to learn, well, like, what is it that's motivating them? What is driving them? Maybe they're under pressure this month. Maybe I have no clue what they're working on right now and they feel like they want to pull their hair out, right? And like just coming on that same playing field with them and saying, like, how can I help you? Let's start there. Let's find some common ground here. That's just such a more effective way to build relationships from collaboration and like forward movement than anything else. And it sounds like that's something that you really leaned into. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't care who you are, how high up you are. Everybody wants to be seen and heard, right? And everybody um, wants their needs to be considered. And usually, even the toughest person, if you just kind of go, okay, I want to step back for a second. Like I'm really feeling tension in the room. I don't want it to be here. Um, I'll go first. I'm going to tell you some things that are on my mind and that are stressing me out or keeping me up at night. And then, um, and then let's talk about you and let's figure out a way to get through this. Like, no, I don't, I just positive and, trusted, everything's with positive intent. I don't know many people on this planet, fortunately, that want to drive angst and stress and tension into conversations, right? Most people don't like it. It's, and often we just avoid it, right? Conflict avoidance is the easiest path to take, but it doesn't solve the problem. The problem doesn't go away. Um, but I remember one time, it's a really silly story, but a very senior person to me didn't like some work that I was doing in a PowerPoint. And so instead of coming to me and having a conversation, he deleted it. Like it was on a shared file, all the work I had done gone, like he just deleted
Oh
it.
no, that's
Never said a word to me.
terrible.
And I'm like, who would do that?
Who
And
would do that?
and then the sadder story is when it really got down to it, like he didn't realize he did that, right?
Oh,
So
wow.
gone over his head to his boss, thrown a fit, said, this guy deleted all the work I'd been doing. But instead I went to him and I was probably even then a little forceful. I said, what would possess you to think it was okay to just wipe out, weeks of work? And he was like, what are you talking about?
Oh
Right. So
my
it ended
gosh.
up being like an honest mistake on his side. Right.
Wow. Yeah.
We not had that conversation. And had I escalated it would have been bad all around. It would have been bad on me because I'm wasting senior leadership's time and I didn't confront the problem myself. It would have been bad on him. It just would not have been a good look any way you look at it. And so I encourage people, and it's hard for me. It's not always easy, but you have to just go to the source and try to figure out with respect what is going on here. Um,
100%.
yeah.
100%. Yeah, go to the person directly. I mean, it's also how you'd probably want to be treated too, right? Like if something did come up or you did a wrong to someone unintentionally or whatever that might be, I'm sure you'd rather they come to you first than go to your boss,
Yeah.
right? And that's exactly what I'm always saying. Like you don't want to overstep and be that person. Like there might be moments where you have to, but do your due diligence first, right? And really show that you've tried and you've tried with a lot of effort as opposed to just jumping the gun and making it seem like you have to overstep that
Yeah.
person out of, disrespect. That's not going to land very well.
No.
Yeah.
No, and if you constantly escalate, like you're crying wolf all the time, it's just
Yeah.
not.
Then you're like complaining, you're not a problem solver. It plays into the brand you're creating for yourself. You're not a problem solver and strategic. You're like, hey, these are all my problems. Help me fix them. And no one really likes that person. And it will actually really stunt your growth. So do not recommend that for anyone listening.
Not take that path.
So tell me this, Tricia, as you were moving through the different levels of your career and especially transitioning into senior leadership, what were some of the key strategies that you found really helped you in that? If it's different than anything that you've shared already, or maybe it's echoing some of the same things that you've shared.
I mentored a lot of people, but I was strategic about it. So I would take on 6 mentees. I would take one from each of the different functional areas that I wanted to know what was going on more in those areas. So as I'm working with these, I'm giving back, I'm helping, and I'm coaching, and I'm also learning and understanding, what's going on in these different business units, which is actually helping me as well. And it was, I guess a little crafty, but at the bottom line was, it just kept me more educated and informed. It taught me, as I'm mentoring people and they're talking to me about the problems they're having with their leadership, I'm learning about that leadership. I'm understanding what drives them.
Yeah.
And then when I'm in a room and I know they're going to be there, I know how to handle that situation. I know I need to talk about X because it's important to this person. And I need, if I want buy-in in this whole room, I need to make sure that I'm hitting on all the points that's interesting to everybody. So if you have the opportunity and you have the desire to kind of coach people and help them with their careers, I assure you it pays you tenfold.
Mm.
And I think it was wildly beneficial in me being able to present better, communicate better, make sure that everybody in the room felt heard and understood, as to what was important to their business unit.
Oh, that is so good, Tricia. Like, I hope people are taking notes on that right now because, no one probably asked you to do that, right? But you just kind of had that instinct. This is something that seems like it will help me. And you saw it through, and it clearly did. And it just built such a great reputation factor for you as well because you're getting to know people, you're building your network, you're learning at the same time, you're informing your own decisions. I did something kind of similar, even in a different regard, right? I found that I was building very intentional relationships with our senior leaders from a younger phase of my career. And I get this question a lot too, Tricia, because sometimes it could feel like intimidating to do that of like, well, what do I have to offer to our CEO or our CFO or our CMO or whoever it might be, right? And I don't think I ever saw it that way. And maybe that was my naivete at the time, but I think it actually really paid off because as you came to realize later on, I'm sure we've both seen this, that it actually gets pretty lonely at the top.
Yeah.
And what was so welcoming when I'd have those more informalized conversations, whether in the office, crossing paths, at our coffee bar, not necessarily in a formal meeting, it was really just showing, as you said earlier, like genuine interest in like, what are their focuses right now? How's their family doing? Like what's coming up for them? And just showing curiosity. And what was very welcoming on the other end of that was how responsive they were because you could almost tell like they felt somewhat disconnected from that generation of population in the company because no one really wanted to just talk to them like that. It was almost like an outlier. And so there's really creative ways that you can position yourself well to get more visibility and exposure in your organization, build great relationships at the same time, and make yourself seen and heard because you deserve that, right?
Yeah. I mean, we have this great tool now with LinkedIn, right? So,
Mm,
a lot of senior leaders, they even have, comms people that are dedicated to making sure that they're posting on LinkedIn. So if
yes.
you're following the leaders in your company and you're seeing what they're posting, you always have something that you can talk to them about, right?
Yes. Such a good point.
You see them and you can just be like, oh, I saw your post on XYZ and, I thought it was so interesting and you've just made them feel good, right?
Yeah.
And when you make someone feel good, again, like, yeah, who doesn't want to feel good? Who doesn't want to feel proud of, and so use LinkedIn, stalk people. I mean, relentlessly stalk them, understand them, what's important to them. Look at their LinkedIn and see where they volunteer. Oh, you know what? I volunteer for the Children's Hospital too, or I know you're a board member at X. Like, show interest.
Oh, totally.
We have so many tools that people can use nowadays. It would be, Gen AI, Google them, whatever.
Right. No, it's incredible. I mean, even just like a fun pro tip, like when you are having those conversations, take notes after. Like,
Yeah.
if you're learning the names of your VP's kids or, whatever it is, write that down. Write that down. Next time you see them, oh, how's Mike doing? Is he already in grade 9 now? Whatever it is, you have this great foundation of insights that you can pull on. It's not stressful, and you're helping yourself make those conversations a lot more natural.
Yeah.
'Cause people like
Yeah.
talking about themselves. When you help them talk about themselves, that's kind of half the battle right there, right?
But I think to your point too is just, taking the notes and remembering, you're right, a kid's name or wait, hey, I heard, I know you're playing in the big golf tournament. How did that go for you? Just things that are
Yeah.
personal. Um, Again, all the way back to the beginning of this chat, people remember how you make them feel at all levels, both above you and below you. Um, And you have a choice every day on how you're going to handle that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to draw on a point here because I feel like it can be often misconstrued if people are listening to this that like we're not talking about like sucking up. This is about relationship building. And there is a difference between the two, right? We're talking about leading genuine, authentic, meaningful relationships founded on common interest and genuine interest in the other person, curiosity about them, right? You're not just doing it for the sake of doing it with this end outcome in mind. It's really because you want to show up in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Okay. I'm really curious to hear your take on this too, Tricia. I know you've built some incredible teams. You've led some incredible teams in your work at Walmart. What would you say are some pretty big red flags that you look out for when building your teams? Like what are your like, oh gosh, run the other way. This is a no-go situation right now.
I'm a big team player. I'm a big believer in we all win or we all fail together. Um, and individuals on a team do not fail. The team has failed. So arrogance is a big one for me, and like a lack of personal accountability, right?
Oh, that's good.
Come to me and tell me you screwed up. Don't let me find out from somebody else. Like, there's no mistake. I actually think you did a post on this recently. Like, there's no mistake that's, earth shattering, that, you're not going to crush the company. But what is a big mistake is when you make it and you hide it. And your leader is now in a room and someone who is aware brings it up, and now you've blindsided your leader.
Yeah.
Right. So the ramifications of you trying to hide something, it's like a little kid trying to hide the cookie when the crumbs are on the vase, right? Like,
That's a good analogy.
just come clean. We see it.
How much are you going to dig that?
I know. I mean, when you're a toddler and you want to dig in and be like, the chocolate's dripping in your face, I did not take the cookie. Okay. But so arrogance for me, and that comes all the way. I can usually assess that out even in an interview, like what words are you using?
Oh, yeah.
I believe we can drive great success, or I know I can do this, right? Now it's okay to use I as well, but I is what you have accomplished. But I don't know. I need to see teamwork out of people, because to our prior conversations too, when you're a team player, you're willing to work through the problems.
Oh, totally. And you can very easily attribute that we to like the vision and your future contributions as well, of like
Yeah.
how you see yourself being projected into that role and how you look forward to what we can do as a team together, what our vision is. Speaking
Yeah.
that kind of language works really well because it almost positions you like you're already a member of the team,
Yeah.
speaking that
Exactly.
language.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
That's a big one for me, arrogance. And it always it always leads to conflict, always.
It does, right? Not just with you, but probably other team members because it can create like hostility and frustration and probably like a lot of unnecessary conflict, right? And it ties so closely, like you said, Trisha, to the lack of accountability. It's just like they go hand in hand together, which made me think, okay, so you kind of talked about like you see some of that in interviews. So let's say for some of the applicants that you've seen over the years or even more recently, what would you say has been like the biggest mistake that you see applicants make?
This one blows my mind um, because it's just not necessary. But people who don't even research the company at all.
Mm,
So they'll show up to the interview, and I might say, okay, you've looked at our website. What's one thing you love and one thing you hate? And, it's deer in a headlight, and you realize they have not even gone to our website, right? So for me, then it's like, how do you know you want to work here? How do you know what we stand for? How do you know that you can add value?
yeah.
Because all you've taught me is you won't even do a little homework before you have the job. How am I going to believe that you're going to give me 100% when I give you the job? Right. So I think taking that time to have that preparation, understanding the company, coming with questions,
Oh,
when
yeah.
I say, do you have any questions? And they say no, it's kind of like, really? Nothing? you know?
Give me anything. Anything at all to go off of.
Yeah. But a thoughtful question would be like, well, I'm curious in your last earnings release, this came out and can you share with me a little bit more strategically about what that's going to drive in the next 3 to 5 years? Or,
Oh, yeah.
showing that you have strategy and thought. I feel nowadays, for some reason, like I said, I'm shocked at the number of people who don't put in that work prior, and it's so important. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's so much more important than your pretty resume, and so much
Mhm.
more important than, your perfect LinkedIn. It's how
Yeah,
you show up the time when it's really there.
totally. I mean, it's such an important point, Trisha, because like at the heart of it, I always say this, but your job in an interview is to position yourself as the solution to the need of that role and to position yourself as the solution to the need of that role and also for the organization is to help show that you are part of this and are already kind of thinking a few steps ahead, right? And so that research and due diligence is going to help you show up like you're ready to hit the ground running. And so if you haven't done that, it's just, I hope for everyone that's tuning into this episode will be very reflective of that, of like, okay, what are those extra things that I can do that will show that attention to detail? Am I going to go look on their social media page and see what their latest campaign was? Or let me look at their latest, press release that's I
Yeah,
see, or their latest financial reports coming out, or let me look if there's any recent YouTube video that the CEO had, right? Like
yeah,
just there's so many opportunities to find those golden nuggets that you can bring and also build your memorability in an interview. Being like, wow, well, I really like Trisha. Like she really nailed that.
yeah. Or and ask the recruiter will tell you, okay, you're going to have 4 interviews. Ask for the names of those people. Go to LinkedIn, see their career. Be interested when you're talking to them.
Yes. Yeah,
Like if I get on, I'm often on my team the last interview. Like I'm kind of just the gut check. I'm going to let the hiring manager really do what they want to do. But,
yeah,
when they're shocked at how long I've been with the company, that should have been a really easy one for you to suss out before you got here,
yeah,
So everything is an opportunity to show your level of due diligence, right?
totally. It's so important.
And there's no excuse, right? Because of all the social media and because of, like
Yeah,
I said, generative AI now, they're going to summarize everything for you. Give me the top 3 things that are interesting about John
exactly.
Doe, the CEO of his company, and it takes you 5 minutes.
It's really like table stakes at this point. And we have to view it like that. And what are you going to do to further differentiate yourself? And this goes for stepping into a new role, internal advancement. Like it doesn't stop. You always have to bring that forward. I just love also, Trisha, like the work that you've been doing in AI and, with the tech team with Walmart. What would you say is some of like the biggest shifts that you're noticing in the consumer brand space, even in tech as a whole, with regards to AI as it's, affecting talent and career advancement? What's been coming up for you, kind of seeing that from the inside out?
Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of discomfort on people being nervous about AI and what that's going to mean and how it's going to change jobs. Um, AI will never have EQ, right? So if you're working on a skill set for yourself right now, that's it, the soft skills, right? We can train Gen AI to be smart at regurgitating its knowledge, but it's never going to have that element. So for people that are worried, I would say don't be worried and embrace it because that's what your leadership is going to be looking for. They're going to be looking for how are you embracing it? And you need to find ways to communicate that. Just like I wrote this press release. What do you think? Fun fact, it only took me 20 minutes because I used Gen AI, right? Let them know that you're using the tools, right? And then again, when decisions are being made and you're not in the room, your name's not on the chopping block because they know that you're engaged. They know
Oh,
that you're moving forward with technology the way that it's going to be used. I think from the consumer side, the consumer more and more wants immediacy and personalization.
Mm.
So, it started with Amazon when you could get whatever you wanted delivered in 2 or 3 days, right?
Yeah.
That is, again, to your point, table stakes now. Like, if I
Yeah.
have to wait more than a day or 2 to get it, what is this company's horrible, right?
Oh,
And
yeah. Expectations have changed. Yeah.
it used to be, let's say you're gonna throw a party for your daughter for her birthday, and you want to do a unicorn party. You would need to sit there and look up, I need a piñata, I need balloons, you're searching all of these different things. Now with Gen AI, the consumer can say, I want to throw a unicorn party, and 20 items come up, and it's like, here's all the things you probably need for this party. Here's your plates, your napkins, everything. And it's
Yeah.
fast.
Oh,
And the
yeah.
consumer wants that, because I don't care who you are, what level you are, and how old you are, nobody has enough time in their lives to do everything, right? So when you can embrace any of these things that are going to give you back more time, and not take as much brain energy, like instead of you thinking about all the things I need for a party, it just told me. I think that the consumer is just going to want more and more and more of that. Um, so I wouldn't be afraid of it. I think that there's going to be definitely some transition, but to anybody out there, just engage and have fun with it,
Mm.
um, and then talk about using it.
Yeah. This is so valuable, Tricia. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's such an important shift that we don't run away or fight it. It's here. It's not going anywhere. So let's use it to our advantage and strategically in our work and how we show up in our career. I think that's so valuable. All right. I know we always say like hindsight is 2020, but for you, Tricia, okay, let's do time machine a little bit. If
Yeah.
you could go back and redo one thing in your career, what would that be and why?
Mm. I would have asked for mentors sooner in my career. Um, I think when I was very junior, not I think I know, because I did it, I didn't feel like I had the right to ask more senior people for their time.
Mm,
And I felt like I had to earn that. But the earlier you start to get that mentorship and that leadership, or you hire that coach, the faster you're going to kind of really nail who you are and start building that brand for yourself, and work through and learn some of the crucial conversations that need to happen. I just didn't start that soon enough.
yeah.
And I think that, obviously I did okay, but I think that that would be, out of the gate, I would say if you are a new college grad, immediately start looking for your people. Who's going to be on your board of directors that's going to help you and counsel you and guide you as you stumble through toxic bosses and what have you. Um, and then again, like I said, I wish, although I probably wouldn't have been emotionally ready for it, I wish I hired my coach sooner. Um, I think those are two things that, and there's a theme there, right? It's getting outside perspective on, on your own personal growth, because you don't know what your blinders are, you know.
Hmm.
I think we talked about this story early on in my career as a leader. I thought I was crushing it, and I got a 360 review. Have you ever had one of those,
Oh,
where
yeah.
people
Very
anonymously can,
intense.
yeah, people anonymously can give you feedback? Well, wow. That was, oh my goodness, yeah. And I would also say that, like, if you have the opportunity to be given those, take it. It hurts, but it's so important, because you don't know your own blinders. We don't know what we don't know, and that's true for everybody. But if someone's going to take the time to tell you, then really reflect on, how do I improve that? How do I make sure that I don't make that mistake again? Um, yeah, so a little long-winded, but get the
Oh, no,
feedback.
but necessary, but very necessary, Trisha. I mean, I'm like nodding like a mad woman here because I'm like, yep, that's exactly how I felt too. I think it was luckily early enough on that I realized the importance of mentorship. And I'm so grateful to have had some really great mentors, but I waited a really long time to even get coaching support. And, I think it would have also just made such a world of difference. Like I did pretty okay. But, just in hindsight, once again, if you can get that and have someone that can really pave that way and fill in the blanks and help you avoid those gap areas, it's really priceless. And you mentioned a really important point too, Tricia, around like feedback. I always say, like people are thinking what they're thinking, whether you ask them or not. And so if they're thinking something constructive or negative about you, you'd rather know what that is so that you can actually action it, because otherwise they're just going to keep thinking that. And you're going to be like, I'm the best person in the world. I'm the best in this team. I'm the best at everything. And then you're like, hey, why did I not get that promotion? Hey, why was I not considered for this? Hey, why am I feeling like that? And suddenly, oh, it's because like we didn't do those perception audits. We didn't take the time to actually get that feedback, as painful as it might feel at times. I know you faced it, Tricia. I faced it. I'm like, oh, I don't really want to hear that. But honestly, you're grateful that you do, because now you're like, okay, clearly a blind spot I didn't anticipate, but now I know what that is and I can fix it.
I remember priding myself on not being a micromanager. And then the feedback came that I was too hands off. So what does that mean? So what that taught me was, for every person on my team now, I needed to say, how do you like to be managed? Do you want, how much involvement do you want from me? Do you want to come to me with drafts? Do you want me to just trust you? So had someone not said that to me or given me that feedback, I would have never started that practice, right? Because I would have just thought, no one likes a micromanager. I'm not a micromanager. Everybody's happy. But that wasn't true.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, this is so good. It directly impacts the questions you can ask. I think that's such an important takeaway. All right, Tricia, maybe one last quick question before we round things off here. I'm really curious. I know we've talked a lot about career stuff and professional stuff, but what's one non-career related piece of advice that was a real game changer for you because of its impact on your day-to-day performance?
Honestly, getting sunlight and fresh air daily, just getting outside and moving. I used to have, when we were all in the office full time, I used to kind of have this joke with people. If they came up and said, do you have a second? We didn't have a scheduled meeting. I'd say, we have to take a walk. So we do a loop, we talk while we did a loop of the office building, just to make sure you're up, you're stretching, you're not, it refreshes your mind. It's good for you. And it's, honestly, if you can walk with people in your workplace when they want to talk, the conversations get deeper. I think there's something about not sitting face to face that allows you to be a little bit more open, so I would say, just get out, get some sun, get some steps in.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. And, I feel like that can also even pertain working remotely, right? Because you did that in an in-office environment. But let's say for remote employees, you can literally just say like, hey, you know what? Let's hop on a call. I'm going to go for a quick walk. I encourage you to do the same. Let's talk it out for like 5 minutes, right? So it really applies to both. I love that one. It really does get you in the right headspace instead of feeling so static at a desk all the time, right? Want to get those creative juices flowing.
Yeah, exactly. Just going to say there's some sort of creativity that comes out of it. I don't know what it is, but it has to be something to do with just getting the fresh air and the sun and the
Definitely.
or the snow, as it may be.
Yes, it's true. It's very true. But even with that, again, it's appreciating the small things, being able to get out there, to go for that walk, that you are able to take that break. It's sometimes the happiness comes in those little moments, Yeah.
And the gratitude of it all, right? It's, I get to go do this.
I love that. Full circle, Tricia. Oh my gosh. I don't even know where to end this thing with, other than just like a huge thank you. I mean, I've loved this episode so much. It's so incredibly valuable for our listeners. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. If anyone is listening to this and they would love to get in touch with you or just learn more about you, Tricia, where can we send them?
Yeah, I mean, you just reach out to me on LinkedIn. So Tricia Dallahan. Um, you just send me a DM or let's chat or let's connect. Um, I love to meet new people and get new connections.
Oh my gosh, Tricia, you're awesome. Thank you so much. I mean, I think everybody probably got a glimpse of your kindness and authenticity and genuine nature from today's episode, but I can really attest to that, just having known you for some time now. You really walk the walk. I just love that about you. And thank you again for being here. And for everyone who did tune in and listen to today's episode, thank you for joining us. Be sure to also subscribe and tune in for our next episode. We have some great things coming. And if you want to get in touch with me, if there's been a topic from today's episode that really struck you or that you're curious to talk more about, feel free to hit me up on social media, Tiffany Human. You could also go straight to my website, www.tiffanyhuman.com, and we can connect there. But thank you so much, and we will see you guys in the next one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
What's been your latest Netflix binge? Let's just get that out of the way.
That's a good one. I haven't actually been on Netflix too much, but I'm big into Paramount Plus and all the Taylor Sheridan stuff. So Yellowstone and that new show Landman. That's kind of been keeping my attention these days.